Hey peeps and everyone at our channel. So let's do another movie discussion. I will put this in both my movie reviews playlist and the Growing Up in Rock and Roll playlist, and the we have a crossover video, and the playlist about AP and our life together. Okay, so this is a movie I made notes on, and there's a few caveats to doing this review. One, I might not know about everything that happened. I can only claim the ones where things from my life ended up in a movie. I don't always know who did what. I am not here to out anyone. Some of this was just funny stuff that happened across the Portland public school system back in the 90s that was kind of the inspiration behind this movie, just because of how the Portland arts kids were back then. So I'm going to go down a list of things from Mean Girls, the original movie that really happened. And this is in anticipation for the new movie coming out in January, which I'm so excited for. A little nervous, I'm not going to lie. When I heard the Harry Ends joke in the trailer, I was like, oh no. That was a joke that took off back in the day and ended up like sometimes when these funny moments happened in some kid's school and they would share it with other kids around Portland, like the joke would just stick or the prank would just stick. And eventually it was something that everybody knew about it, even if you weren't there and didn't know who actually did it on any given day. So some of these things really happened on days I was there, wherever I was. Now keep in mind the backdrop for this is the Portland Public Schools back in the 90s. We're all in high school. I'm going to say middle school through through high school because I'm going to take you through all of it. And you got to remember that kids in the Portland arts community were sometimes having to move schools frequently, come and go from schools for various projects they might be working on out there. Like a kid might go off and do a movie and come back a few weeks later and have to catch up. Kids were doing performances out there. A lot of us kids were volunteering at La Luna after school a few days a week. And, you know, the stories about me and AP working down at La Luna as teenagers together, when he worked at the sound booth and I was doing like ushering or the merch table. Some of those stories are up in my series about growing up with AP. He was Portland's probably most famous, most requested, most epic, legendary DJ that city ever saw. And growing up with him was, in a lot of ways, a real blessing for me that I had him in my life. He taught me more about life and more about music than a young girl could hope to learn if she wasn't learning that at home and in other ways. So he and I had been very close, and he's going to Portland Public Schools during this time too, and so am I, and all of us kids are spread out across different schools. And sometimes, you know, the odd celebrity or kid that was about to get famous would pop in and they'd be at your school for a while. Other times there were kids that just got regular gigs in the arts, whether it was community theater, or, you know, traveling for dance competitions. So kids were in and out all the time. Sometimes kids missed a lot of school and had to catch up. Lots of funny pranks, and sometimes kids would come back from projects they did out there, and you know, kind of it had gone to their head a little bit. Now they had a little bit of an attitude, and at the age that we're talking about for the characters in this movie, that some of that is just very characteristic of that age. So the first tidbit I'm going to give you, I'm just going to go down this list here. It's not necessarily in the best order. The fountain at the mall moment in the movie actually really did happen. It happened at a mall in downtown Portland. Was it Pioneer Place Mall? I want to say it was Pioneer Place Mall and the fountain down there. And sometimes us kids would hang out at the malls after school. There was the show 16 that was being filmed at Lloyd Center Mall. So sometimes you could go down there after school and watch them do a scene for the show in one of their live events. Like they would do live performances at the mall. And a lot of those same kids and some of us kids, these kids would get jobs at the mall too. These were their first jobs. So the backdrop is, me and AP working at La Luna with all the rock and roll kids, some kids at the mall filming for 16 or doing the live events that ended up later inspiring the TV show 16. We haven't grown up enough quite yet for what we do in the shadows. So we're talking about this 90s high school era. One day we're sitting down at the mall and these kids it's hot and the weather's starting to get warmer. Kids are hot after school. Kids are, teenagers being hormonal and all, they all jump in the fountain and start splashing around. So that moment actually really did happen, and it was just some kids clowning around, but other kids thought that it was so disrespectful to do at the mall, while other kids thought it was funny. I was kind of on the fence on that one, like you hear this sort of being a reoccurring theme for me, that our lives are so wild that sometimes just sitting there watching this stuff go down was all the amusement I needed. Just to see people's reactions when weird stuff happened. Like how me and AP would, and some of the kids would sit outside the other side in the hallway and watch people's reactions as they went in for the first time. And sometimes if it was like AP doing a Halloween show or something, he'd make the entrance extra creepy, and just sitting and watching kids' reactions could just be endless entertainment all night long, watching people's reactions. The city was an all ages club. It was kind of like the all ages LGBT friendly Studio 54. Meanwhile, Drew was over at the real Studio 54. So I'm telling you, these kids were out there having fun. Okay, so also keep in mind that the focus of this movie, granted this catty behavior these girls and kids across Portland engaged in, some of it was super funny, some of it was super mean and uncalled for, and what's more important is their maturity and transformation at the end after the workshop intervention assemblies, which had to occur across the whole city of Portland because the kids had just gone wild in the 90s. We're talking the grunge era, the rock era, industrial music's taken off. Kids are volunteering in the club. Kids are heavily in the arts community because Portland isn't that far away from LA, so sometimes kids go back and forth. They're trying to finish public school while they're doing that. So that what matters is the transformation at the end, because when you hear the end here, when you hear the end of where this story ends up, it's actually a really beautiful story of how a generation of kids worked out their problems and came together in the end, and all just kind of ended up being friends. Like our senior all-night party was epic. It was on the Portland Spirit. We hired a belly dancer. Okay, so maybe some kids may have brought in some refreshments, but that was a pretty fun party, and the only reason that party was able to happen and be as fun as it was for the Portland kids, when they finally got that special senior all-night party, which was a tradition in Portland. If you graduated from one of the Portland public schools, you got a senior all-night party, which was just an all-night bash that went till like 5:30 in the morning. Everybody's out at Denny's to breakfast the next day. And it's just a fun party night. It's supposed to be kind of like, Made Safe as like a school event, except it's off campus. And a lot of the kids have turned 18 by then, or even older than that, if they've gotten behind in high school, and have to stay behind and catch up for a year or two. But that was a fun party, and the only reason that party was able to be as fun as it was because kids were able to put their differences aside in the end, and we just kind of got rid of cliques. And we remember how I keep saying that one of the most beautiful things that I loved about the movie Dogma, and about shows like 16, is it shows how all these kids in this generation eventually learn to prize themselves as unique individuals. They might hang out with the skater kids, but we don't need cliques separating us. And the stuff that happened in Mean Girls is how we learned that stuff. That's how we learned that stuff to become those more mature people in the end. So, when I see that in movies, when I see like people from all walks of life working together, I always love those moments in movies and TV, because that was how it ended up for the kids across Portland. You had kids from different schools hanging out at each other's, school parties and and stuff like that. Or sometimes you would be someone's prom date to, a different school's prom and stuff like that. So, okay, so you also have to remember too that a lot of these kids that were coming and going in the arts, they had to grow up faster. These kids were already almost like little adults. These kids are working in the clubs. These kids are on set. Their maturity level and ability to be independent and need to be independent is a bit higher. So, we are talking, free range kids across Portland. And, as long as kids are showing up on set or to their gig or whatever and getting to school the next day, granted, there are some funny hijinks in the process of doing all of that. But, in a lot of ways, we almost all already kind of saw ourselves as little adults, which isn't necessarily healthy for school age kids. You still got to have that time to be a kid and grow up. And a lot of these kids didn't have that. So also consider, the toll that being in the arts can take on a child star, child celebrity, or a kid that's working in the industry. It's not an easy life. You're trying to finish school. You're trying to keep your grades up. You've got to do some extracurriculars if you're considering college down the road, and balance all of that hectic life. Where you're going to be largely working with adults in the industry too. So that's the other thing too, is when you're working with adults in the industry, you're expected to act like an adult. So sometimes our jokes were a lot more mature than our age. This was just normal conversation to us. This was not any big deal to us. This wasn't trying to be, us trying to be super offensive with some of our jokes. But I think the way they depict it in Mean Girls with some of the funny one-liners that really did happen at, like, in the cafeteria at school lunch, that just ended up becoming part of Portland culture for those years for all the kids. So here's some of those. Okay, so I will personally claim that it was me that made out in the projector room with the boy, okay? I'd like to say I'm not proud of that moment, but I probably would do it all over again. And yes, it was for a prank that was, the prank did go down, and actually the prank worked a bit better than the movie depicted it. It was highly effective for a number of things. This was a multi-purpose prank. This prank wasn't just for the one thing that they made it seem in the movie. That was one of them, but it was for 3 or 4 other reasons too, and it was intended to have 3 or 4 other effects. The secret behind my scheming in pranks is sometimes I have multiple purposes intended for these things, and it's just a matter of which ones are going to work out for me by the end of whatever my young childhood hijinks were. So me and AP were the kind of kids, and some of these other kids, we were big into pranks. We were the kids that were stealing each other's marshmallows at childhood campouts and stuff like that. And some of that's never going to go away when you grow up with the same kids, even if you're going to different schools across Portland and you're getting together after school for shows and stuff. So some of these just became part of Portland kids' lingo and stuff like, for instance, the CR line when the kids are standing in line to get the candygram and they're like say C again. That actually happened. I was there. It was me and my friends in line when that moment happened, and one of us spurted that out. And when it came out, it was just so funny that, and the reaction of the person that was right next to me was like say it again, because it was just the delivery in that moment was just so perfectly hilarious. We're standing in line for a school Valentine's Day fundraiser to get these little heart-shaped lollipops for $1, and you can buy one and have a little note sent to one of your friends in class, and they would deliver it in class, and it was to benefit a school club or team of some sort, and they did it every year. So the Glen Coco joke, this was a stunt that us kids pulled with a new kid that had just come to school. And the thing was, this new kid was so cool. Coolest new kid ever, and shows up in sophomore science. And I don't even remember anything else about this kid, because I don't think I sat by them or got to know them. And I think they had a slightly different name. Like, I think the name was slightly changed for the movie, but I think Coco was part of the name. And when we saw the name on the new student roster, before class started, me and some friends that were in that science class coming up with a business plan for a food cart that we wanted. It was like a pretzel cart that we wanted to start as, it was part of a class project where we had to come up with a multi-stage business plan for a business that we might want to start one day. And I don't know why we were doing it in science, but we were. And we came up with Schnoop and Honker and Wiener Schnitzel Incorporated, and it was supposed to be like a pretzel hot dog, fast food type stand, and this was the class that the Glen Coco character walks in on sophomore year. We already know each other. This person doesn't know us. We don't know them. We just see their name on the roster and we're like, oh, somebody named Coco. And we look over and we see how cool this person is dressed, and we're like, this is the coolest new kid in school. We've got to make this kid popular like right now, so they can like come to parties with us and stuff. And then it turned out the kid wasn't like one of those kind of kids, didn't want to go to any parties with us, didn't want our help with any of this, but we took it upon ourselves to make sure that everybody heard this person's name around campus. And the way we did that was by sending this person candygrams, where at every period that they sat down in, they would get 2 or 3 lollipops, and everybody would hear this kid's name and be like, oh my gosh, that's such a cool name. And so the inspiration behind the story was because we just genuinely thought this was a really cool kid. Now, I can't even remember anything else about this kid, aside from the fact that Coco was part of the name, because I don't think they were there for very long, like maybe only a year, and we didn't have any interactions. But that was one of those funny moments that just ended up becoming a running joke. Like, people just kept sending them candygrams in every period, and they raised a lot of extra money too for the school fundraiser. But also the CR joke happened in line. With the candy, it was me and my friends, and that ended up becoming a joke across Portland, and we used it as an anti-substance message when we used that joke. So it did end up having a special meaning that, was meant to help keep kids on track, just in a funny way that could make kids laugh. Like, don't go out there and do that stuff. So that was the whole thing behind that joke. It was meant to be a positive message. It just came out rather hilarious in line. And we were comparing how sugar is like an addiction too, and how sugar can become that substance for you, and whether we should have been standing in line ordering all this sugar right before lunch when we're trying to stay healthy because we're working in the arts and out in the club. We're like we had a salad bar at school, and the salad bar is going to come back at the end of this video, because this we had a really great cafeteria. We had burgers, we had pizza, we had the clicky table with the map. So like this map was actually an all-purpose map for all the schools of Portland, and it approximated where cliques sat in some school cafeterias across Portland schools, but it wasn't necessarily accurate to each school. It was accurate for like 5 to 7 of them, and then if we had to use the map to help orientate, like say a new kid just coming from Hollywood, they're up here to like film a part for a movie and go to school at the same time, and they're going to be here for 6 months to a year doing that, and they're coming to school for the first day and they don't know where to sit, they don't know how anything works up here in our city. We had the Portland kids had this map, like the Marauders map. um, and Harry Potter will come back in this too. So the Portland kids had this Marauders map, and we could show where each clique in any school cafeteria across the city would sit, so kids could plan. And we would show it to them on their first day of school, like on the way to school, as we're taking the new kid to school and helping to get them through their first orientation day. Can I borrow the map from Benson High School, from a kid at Benson High School who might have used it last week, so I can show this new kid around? And we would just pass this map around, and you could request it and hang on to it for a week if a new kid who was a friend of yours or someone you were just wanting to help showed up at school, or if you were on like the school's welcoming committee, you know how they always sign like a couple students to like help a new kid get oriented. That's what this map was for. And it wasn't accurate at all schools. So sometimes kids, once they got into the cafeteria, were like, oh, the seating isn't how they said. And the cafeteria seating really changed by the end of our high school years. So we'll get back to that. That's where the cafeteria started, were tables of cliques, and you want to sit at the cool ones. And in Portland, these were the cool ones. So, okay, what's the next one? Your mom's chest hair joke did happen in our school cafeteria, and it was the person sitting next to me that day. And I don't even remember who the person was, because I was one of those kids that just kind of made it around to all the different cliques, and was kind of friends with a whole bunch of different groups of kids. The skater kids, the goth kids, the club kids, the LGBT kids, even some of the Christian kids, the cheerleaders, the dance kid, I got around to my various cliques, and one day we're sitting at a mixed clique table, and one kid, I think they were from the goth community, was kind of grumpy because they had been out all night. They had an event that they had been at and didn't get home late, and were sitting at the table just tired as heck the next day, like trying to even just keep their eyes open and eat their lunch, and no, they're not going to eat lunch today, like no. And somebody comes up and like asks something, and the response was, "Your mother's chest hair!" And everybody just kind of stopped and looked like, OMG, like, and just busted up laughing, like, are you grumpy or what today? And so your mother's chest hair joke stuck across all the kids of Portland, because this was one kids heard about after school, and everybody was kind of chuckling about. I think it was a really cool kid too that just happened to get the opportunity to be at a lot of events. I'm trying to remember who it was. Like, I can't remember the kid that actually said that, but it doesn't matter. I'm not here to out anyone or anything like that. And I went to a number of different schools, so I'm not gonna say which kids at which school for the most part, but that one may have happened at mine at lunch one day, and I don't even remember the kids that were there that day. When it was said, but that was one that stuck, just like the say see again joke. So let's see, the butter your Okay, so the butter your muffin joke was one that I wasn't actually there for. This happened at another school, and I'm not sure who. This was some kid's social experiment, I have a feeling. And what this kid would do was anytime there was a new kid at school, they would approach them the first day in the cafeteria and ask them this question. And then everyone, again, like I said, we sometimes just like to sit around and watch people's reactions. Maybe this kid was studying for a part for a movie or something, like practicing some new material or something, and this was the question that they went up and asked like every single new student, like whenever, every couple months when a new student trickled in, this precious moment would happen. It was at a different school. I don't even remember what school it was or who started that, who made that a thing. But when we heard the stories after school about it, it was hilarious sounding. It was one of those you had to be there moments, and they're kind of reenacting it, as we're sitting there. This is how it went down. And we're probably just sitting waiting for like our max to go down to La Luna after school for our volunteer gig, and hearing stuff like this from other kids' hilarious day at school. And sometimes that's how rumors and jokes and funny pranks spread, because I'm pretty sure that happened to other schools after that. Like that became a thing. And then they had to come up with new bizarre questions. And it just became like a Portland Public School new kid tradition. Like if you didn't get asked that on your first day of school when you entered the cafeteria for the first time after seeing the map, you weren't a local yet. Kind of like a welcome to Portland Public School, fun little initiation. Then afterwards, I heard they would like invite the kid to come sit and eat with them. So the whole, you should come sit with us. Like sometimes this could go well and sometimes it could not go well. Like sometimes a group like Regina George's group asks you to come sit with them. Next thing you know, you're sitting with the most popular girls in school. You're totally intimidated. You don't know anyone or anything yet. You don't know how things work. And you're just trying to manage. So that had to have been a lot of kids' high school experience, right? Like I know that like once we started working at La Luna, we kind of became those popular kids. We were the kids that everybody would come sit with at lunch because they wanted to hear the stories of all the awesome shows we went to and stuff. Like, what did you do last weekend? Well, we started a baptismal crowd surfing fun little thing down at La Luna. You should come check out our show, and if you decide to hang around, like you can go through that sacred initiation into La Luna life ceremony. And so okay, what's next? Let's see. The you could be wrong about liking the most popular boy in school line. So I think this may have happened in middle school, and I don't even remember who all was involved. And it may have been that I was new at this school. So in this moment, I was Cady here. Now keep in mind the characters that are playing all these stories, they weren't necessarily the same kids that did each and every one of the things that you see in this movie. This happened across a whole city of kids, and this movie is essentially a collection of all the funny stories that happened across Portland Public Schools in the 90s, where kids pitched in all their stories of the funny stuff that happened in high school. But hopefully, with a good ending after we all kind of grew up and learned a thing or two. These were all the fun, hilarious moments to look back on and say, what were we thinking? So I developed a crush on the cutest boy in school, and I'm new, and I don't know that this one girl that I'm kind of starting to maybe become friends with, we don't know yet, we'll see, we're still feeling each other out, and the topic comes up at the lunch table of which boy do you like. We're going to set you up with, now that you're with our group, we're gonna set you up with one of the cute boys in school. And I mentioned the wrong boy on this day, and this girl has a big crush. And what I also don't know is her childhood history of growing up with this kid and why she loved him so much. And so in that moment, I think I offended her. Like this was something that you didn't say in this school, and I did not know that on my first day of school. That you could think you like a boy, but you could be wrong. And that was the response I got, because when I said it, it was like other girls must have said that before, and this must have been a vexing problem to this poor girl who loved this one boy so much. And they had a really special connection back to childhood, and I don't know, like going to church together or something. Like they were really good friends. And here I come along, the new girl in school, and oh, you want me to pick a boy? Okay, well, he's good looking, and no, you could be wrong. Like I'm not the first girl that maybe made that mistake to where that line had already been a thing. And I got the feeling when it was used on me that day to try to clue me in at the lunch table in what was an embarrassing moment, that that maybe that hadn't been the first time that line had been used, and that was just kind of the classic go-to line to clue someone in, like, don't talk about her guy. Whoops, like, I'm sorry, like, you didn't know, now you know. And it would never have been my intention to trample on any other girl's toes. It was just being new to the environment and not knowing everyone's history together, sort of dumb watermelon move. So that was a funny moment. I ended up really liking those girls too, if I remember correctly. And I don't even remember who all they were. I don't remember who they were. And I think it was middle school. And I haven't remembered everything from that time period yet, but I think I remember liking them. I think I remember thinking they were pretty cool. They might have been in the drama program. And so I thought, obviously I'm a kid that's growing up in the arts too. I've already got songs out there about me and stuff. Maybe I'd get along with these girls, but you could be wrong about some girl's guy. And so for that, I'm sorry. For that middle school, just not knowing any better moment. Okay, so now we get to the Planned Parenthood prank. Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is one that we should not be proud of, guys. This was a mean prank, and it really did happen, at the mall one day, and they did it to a kid they didn't like. And the mother may have actually believed it, even though this kid was like an abstinent church-going kid or something. It was a horrible prank to play on a kid like that, and I don't even remember the reasons why kids chose that prank. It probably just should have never happened. Every time I see that moment in the movie, I still cringe. I still am like, yeah, that one wasn't funny. That one may have caused some problems between that kid and their parents. That there's nothing to look back and be proud about that on. Sometimes kids just went too far. One time in the drama department, I was doing AV lighting for a production of Bye Bye Birdie, which I had just fallen in love with this script and this production, and they recruited me because I was already down helping at the clubs and stuff. I already knew a little bit about here's how to work a spotlight and stuff like that. So I was up in the AV room above the school auditorium, and there were times where I would play pranks on the cast with the lighting. And there was this one moment when they were doing like improv warm-up exercises for Bye Bye Birdie that I used a spotlight. Like I made it so the spotlight didn't turn on when it was supposed to, and all the actors doing the scene on stage were getting confused, and then I turned it on at just the right moment, and and the lead in the production exclaims, "Let there be light!" And the whole auditorium just busted up laughing during that rehearsal day. So I was that girl that made out with the boy in the projector room because that was my job up there. And it was irresponsible. I probably shouldn't have done it, but I did it for a number of reasons. Some of them may have worked out a little bit better than others. I might have gotten in a bit of trouble for that. Like, you can't do that at school. Good to know. Thank you. I'm already used to being out there in the club scene like a little adult. I've been running off with AP for years, you know. Sometimes I just didn't know better on stuff like that. You know, I was that toddler that was sneaking into bars because I was left unattended and not fed allegedly for long periods of time and isolated in a little room by myself, and I would just get fed up and climb out the window or just walk right out the front door. So, you know, some of that stuff was just stuff I was already very, very used to and didn't see other people's problems with it. Sometimes you have special bonds with certain kids and you run off and have your fun nights together. You know, there would just be times where I might not tell everyone where I'm going because the whole idea is to get away from everyone and have some privacy. And I think teenagers did that a lot back in the day. You know, where, well, like I know Alex used to do that and it used to like really scare the heck out of me. So now, you know, thinking back, I realize how it must have felt for other people when me and AP would just duck out. You know, when it was, you know, later down the road and little Alexandra was doing this, she'd show up to a show, you know, hey, you gonna help us out tonight and maybe get a volunteer spot, and 20 minutes later we look around and where'd she go? She's gone. What happened to her? And rest in peace to her. She was a really talented little fashion designer. Yeah, so okay. The N64 and CD collection thing. So in that scene, there is an N64 and a collection of CDs, except you can't play the CDs in the N64 because it's not that kind of system. And there is a story behind why that was. This was a kid who worked in the arts, wasn't always in town, but sometimes was and may have been going to school. I'm still trying to remember everything. And the rumor was around Portland was that they, after their stash of stuff got raided, their CDs and movies got raided one day because they had put together a painstaking collection so that kids in the arts had like access to movies for research and props if they needed for a show or music for a show or something. And had a little side thing of loaning out those things, and you could go over and check them out and bring them back in a couple of weeks, like a media library. Except that after his collection got raided once, it became a thing where he never kept all the stuff out, like you wouldn't find the CD player out with the CDs or like the video games with the video game system, just so kids couldn't help themselves without permission. And I don't even remember who that was. I just heard that rumor that that's why that moment. What's next? The Jingle Bell Rock song. So have they been doing it for years by the time they're sophomores or juniors in high school? Joke. Yeah, from what I heard, this was a talented group of performers that used to perform holiday stuff. And I don't know, like, in what aspect And they had been doing Jingle Bell Rock since middle school. I don't know that it was quite that over the top, but it was always really, really good from what I hear every year. But I think there were times it may have concerned people, like, these are young girls. um, but and I don't know the whole story behind that. There just was a rumor that the Jingle Bell Rock thing happened every year at Christmas, and that it may have been going on since middle school. And I don't know any more about it. I don't know who those people were. Just one of those rumors around Portland. So if that answers anyone's burning question, it was a group of young performers from what I heard. So, like, classically trained in the arts, musicians. So, the Candy Graham story I already told. Okay, so the Aaron Samuels jokes. Some of those were about me and AP, and are always flirting back and forth, but sometimes being with other people. And I don't think they depicted it quite like I think this is also a collection of other girls' stories with their one boy too. Just all sorts of those kind of funny moments. In one relationship in a movie, that is of Cady Heron and Aaron Samuels. And so me and AP definitely like we had some of those moments growing up, where we were both into each other, but it wasn't going to happen because another girl was going to come between it and ruin it every time. And the ongoing frustration that was, I can't tell you how many times I about lost it over girls just intruding between me and AP. And there would be times where, like, we had just made up after an argument, and me and AP are close again, and we're doing good, and we're having fun, and we're getting our work done. And then some girl would come along, like, right as things were going well with us. So that kind of running joke through Portland, the me and AP saga, that ran through years and years of Portland's night and entertainment life, and all the drama that went around with that, from the fights in the clubs to the you look sexy with your hair pushed back kind of jokes and stuff. So some of those are pretty fun, fond memories as I think back about his life and his accomplishments. He was one of those people that it was just an honor to have known. You don't meet people like that. And that's why he became so popular and so beloved in Portland, because you just don't meet people that awesome in real life. You just don't. And when you do, you don't let them go. When you do, you value and cherish and treasure that. So the song "We're in This Together" by Nine Inch Nails that may have helped inspire "We're All in This Together" in High School Musical. I have that story coming out in a video episode here soon. That was me and AP's song that ended up becoming everybody in Portland's togetherness song. And by the end of this saga of us high school kids growing up in Portland, out there in the arts, we are doing group performances to this song together, because we've worked our stuff out. We've grown and matured through high school till we get to the end result of the "We're in This Together" performances that me and AP and lots of kids across Portland did back in the day, and why why those songs are so special to the kids of Portland and to the industrial and club scenes. And I think those songs always will be. Like, we literally bumped the High School Musical soundtrack at the club when it came out, and had our dance night all over again. Like, we had already done it before. And fun moments like that is kind of what kept all of us across Portland, close all those years and bonded. So even if there were rocky times during high school where we legit needed a workshop intervention program, this wasn't just at our school. This occurred across most of the schools of Portland, because catty behavior and kids coming and going from the arts community and stuff was such a big thing, at the time, that they had to bring in specialists to help these kids cope with their lives out there and their lives in high school, and how to handle their behavior responsibly and stuff. Because, yeah, there were times there were pranks, and there were times that stuff would go too far. And okay, so now we got to get to the who's been personally victimized by Regina George joke. When you guys hear the origin story of how this lovely Portland joke got started and stayed, I think you guys are going to see it in a different way, and it does have kind of a cool, a cool, touching story of togetherness behind it that makes it so iconic. So, remember how I told the story of how me and 50 to 100 Portland kids campaigned and helped the city with the building the Rose Garden Stadium project over several years, and that we had done it because we had gotten so fed up with the outdated sound system at the old Coliseum, like the one that Elvis had that disastrous show at. It was that bad, and we had been to a number of Nine Inch Nails shows when we had been even younger than that, and the shows, I always felt, never sounded as good as I knew the band could and should sound. So I knew that the performances were suffering, and a couple times in a row, Trent bashes his instruments on stage in moments that just devastate me to see that happen to instruments. And that is the events that inspired us kids building the Rose Garden, or going in on helping to get that project done and campaigning for it in the first place. So the joke came because sometimes us kids would be down at the venues helping to set up or tear down. We were the kids that would undo the cords and wrap the cords and put them in the crates after a show. And we're down there after one of these things happens, and one of them says, "Who here feels personally victimized by Trent's equipment continually getting destroyed?" Us kids couldn't afford that stuff. So to us, it came across as a little offensive, but also frustrating about the venue. It was the sound quality at the venue that inspired us to want a new stadium in that city. And like I said, the curved kind of triangular point of the roof of what is now the Moda Center, that was my architectural design idea. That's where that joke originated from, was who feels victimized by the Memorial Coliseum's bad sound quality. And that ended up sticking. And sometimes it would be used by kids in other ways, like, who feels personally victimized by Regina George. If there was a kid being a mean kid at a club one night or something, somebody would spout that off, and it was always a joke back to how the Memorial Coliseum victimized all of us with its bad sound quality for so many years. So that's how that joke got started. That another Nine Inch Nails inspiration behind something that happened moment. Us kids were such big fans in Portland of them. We just kind of organized to try to help, like, I'm sure there were kids that would hang behind after the shows and, out at the back door and be like, "Hey, can we get you some takeout? Can we get you some food?" Whatever. just like kids were always helpful when Nine Inch Nails came to town, and if that meant we had to erect a new stadium, well, gosh darn it, we're gonna do that. And it took a number of years and a lot of hard work and a lot of going to planning meetings, a lot of sitting through long planning meetings just to have 30 seconds to put in your 2 cents about an architectural design feature or things you want to see in this place, and whatnot. So, these kids were out there working hard, on the things that they felt were important, you know, even just to help the city, And we were starting to become such a big mecca for music at the time with the Portland Mayor's Ball and stuff, like the sound quality at the Coliseum had to go. It had to, that place had to go. And it was an endless source of frustration to the point where we blamed the Memorial Coliseum for personally victimizing us. And I'm so glad that now when Trent comes to town, when the boys come to town, now they have a better place to play. And like I said, seeing the Fragile tour there after the place finally got built, so special for us kids. Yeah, yeah. And I've got to do a review of that show at some point, and about the awesome effects at that show, because he really did it up for larger stadiums after that. Like he's gone big by then. Like he was too big for the Coliseum, and that was a big part of the problem. Was a lot of times artists with bigger sounds, that place was a bit too small and a bit too outdated of a sound system to really take advantage of a band that had gone global. So, okay, what's next? The She Doesn't Even Go Here line. Okay, so during the interventions, these intervention workshops happened across a bunch of schools across Portland. Like they just kept sending these specialists, the same specialists, into each school that was having this problem. And it was happening everywhere. Part of it was just the era, rock and roll, grunge rock, kids rebelling. And part of it was just the fact that so many of these kids were out there working in the arts that they were coming back like little adults with their attitudes and everything. And part of it was because we had all grown up together and were already so close as kids across Portland, where you might have friends that go to a bunch of different other schools and stuff. Sometimes you go down and have lunch at their school, or, you go to one of them with to prom at their school. And that was part of what made Portland just not cliquey in general. Like you saw these kids all hanging out at the mall together after school, even if they were in different cliques. So it's weird that outside of school we could handle this stuff, and inside of school stuff got out of control. And that could be because, sometimes bands have differing songs coming out. People are on different sides of little beefs and stuff like that. So things can get divided and kids can start getting retaliatory and vindictive. And some of that is just that age. Some of that is just kids at that age exploring their independence for the first time, deciding their own things for the first time, getting a little bit more freedom for the first time. And yeah, sometimes, they test the boundaries a little bit, they test the limits a little bit, and it has to be reined back in. So these workshops were really effective, though, because they got kids up out of their chairs and participating, and, cross the line if this has ever happened to you. Sorts of bonding and working through your problems type exercises. These are some good workshops. They make it look kind of cheesy in the movie and stupid, but these were helpful workshops that made a huge difference, because by the end, when Girl World was finally at peace, and it wasn't just Girl World, it was Guy World too, when Portland School Kids World was finally at peace, what happened at our school was a beautiful thing. We had all these clicky tables and kids had been seeing the map since their first days of school 4 years ago. Long-standing traditions like that, and now we had to change our ways. And one of the things our school chose to do, and this was partially my idea because being the Holy Family Grail descendant reasons, I thought it might be this is how I would approach it if I was looking to make kids feel more included in a sense of togetherness and not having cliques. We had this idea of let's push all the tables in the cafeteria together into one big long table across the whole cafeteria. We're going to call it the Last Supper lunch table. And kids from all different cliques should sit together, eat together, break bread together, talk about their problems, work out their problems together. If they had issues, that they had problems with the school or problems with another group of kids, this was a mediation place where kids could sit down and talk. And we had rules like no fighting, no arguing, no name calling, no throwing food. We also had a table DJ. So we had a boombox at that table every day, and kids could bring in CDs of their favorite music, or if they had a new song coming out on some band's album, they could bring it to school. We'll play it. I think we had to follow a few like non-explicit rules there. And here's some of the problems that we were able to work together as a non-cliquey school by senior year. By senior year, this is how we all ate lunch. This was our senior year experience was the Last Supper lunch table of togetherness, where you had kids from the chess club hanging out with cheerleaders and rockers and skaters at the same beautiful table of togetherness. When I think back on it, it almost just brings a happy tear to my eye. So here's some of the things we helped out on. One kid who was a kid that was really into politics, was going to major in poli-sci, wanted to run for office one day, wanted to run for school president, but he wasn't the most popular kid in school. Can he get some people to listen to his campaign platform at our Last Supper table, get behind him, and then, he did get elected. He did get elected twice, because he just sat down and talked with his constituents face to face and heard what their issues were and discussed his platform and ideas with them. We ended up getting rid of paper towels to be more eco-friendly at the school in a project the kids did to do a fundraiser to get hand dryers, which helped some of us girls to blow our hair out if we ended up at school and our hair's still wet after our morning shower. We have these blowers in the bathroom now, yay. So these were things that this table worked on, and should be proud of. Getting the senior parking lot paved. At one point, the school was looking at getting rid of the school salad bar in the cafeteria, which was an unthinkable thing to cheerleaders and the dance team kids, and kids that were working in the arts at the time, where a healthy diet was important, training athletes and stuff. So that's when you saw kids from all different groups, whether they were cheerleaders or athletes or, geeky drama department kids, all working together to resolve that issue with the school and come up with, here's the reasons why we need this healthy salad bar kept there. Because beyond that, we had a really great cafeteria. We had pizza, we had burgers. Problem was it was all way, way too greasy, way, way too greasy. We had a cookie bar, an Italian soda bar, so getting healthy food there was a struggle. We had off-campus lunches, so some kids would go out to lunch to local restaurants and stuff. We just had more freedom as kids, and sometimes like there would be times like one time I had to do was working on a story for the school paper about the mayor's ball, and we had gotten some tickets and we're going to go, and that was a thing we loved to do every year, some of us kids that were really into the music scene already in that town. I'm going to do the story for the mayor's ball, but I need to go down and get permission from the record label of one band that's going to be performing there, to see if we can get an interview for the school paper that they'll be performing at the mayor's ball, and maybe highlight some of the musicians that are going to play there. So sometimes there were times where kids, that were in the arts and trying to multitask in school would, have to leave lunch. It was off campus lunch, so they could leave lunch, take the Max downtown, go run those kind of errands, come back. Oh, where were you at lunch? Oh, down at the record label on Second Avenue. Wait, you went all the way downtown at lunch? Yeah, sorry, I'm 20 minutes late getting back. Important thing for the school paper and the mayor's ball happening here in a couple of weeks. And there were kids like that all over, from different schools that we were all helping to prop up the arts community, keep the arts community thriving, and hoping that a lot of these artists end up down in LA with careers later. That was the idea behind supporting the Portland arts community, was because sometimes those people did end up getting opportunities like that. So yay for that. Yay for the mayor's ball too. Now, thinking back, that was one of the better things of Bud Clark's reign. But also there was the booming homeless crisis during his reign too. So you also have to remember that sometimes these kids are trying to go to school and they don't even have a place to live. Sometimes these kids are also homeless. And just trying to stay in school is a struggle. So, and that happened to me my junior year when I got my sweet junior year Cady. My mom just didn't want to be a parent, I don't think, at that time, and threw us out of the house. And I ended up having to stay with friends and couch surf just to try to stay in school. And I don't have a vehicle while I'm out there, so I don't even know how I'm going to get to school. And I put a list out to my friends, like, these are the vehicles I'm looking for. If you find something, it's like a couple $100 that maybe needs some fixing up, I've got some friends, let me know. And lo and behold, we end up scoring this Cadillac with like leather seats. We had a CD player installed. Just random high school miracle, man, for like $150, except it was going to need like, possibly several thousand in expensive repairs, except that after a couple of them, I'd be able to use it for the time being. I was going to have to skip on getting the alternator fixed and just have to charge the battery for 2 hours every morning on my way to school, which got to be kind of a pain in the butt. But we had some pretty epic moments like that, and like our senior all-night parties, all the awesome club nights and the shows that we did, the La Luna baptismal crowd surfing thing. So these kids, were making an impact in the city and in the arts, and we were having a lot of fun doing it. So it's not like we were always fighting all the time either. So I know sometimes it seems like that in the movie, and it wasn't always like that. It wasn't always like that. So, okay. So in these school workshop assemblies where they would gather all the kids of, I think it was for junior year kids in most schools. It might have depended, like, which year had the most problems. I think in our school it was junior year kids. And there was rumors, and I never saw this actually happen, I don't think, so I don't know who this was. But the "she doesn't even go here" thing, I hear happened at a different school when they were having their workshop day. And this girl just loved these workshops so much and loved seeing people work out their problems so much that this girl, whoever she was, would show up at other people's schools on days they were having their assembly and try to like sit with the kids and like go through the whole workshop again and again and again. And it got to the point where kids started spotting her, like, she doesn't even go here. And there were rumors around town that, like, hey, she showed up at my school this week. I don't know how many times it happened. I just heard about it. Like, I don't think I was there for that. But the "she doesn't even go here" line I hear actually really happened. So, and yay her for whoever she was wanting to, just really enjoyed the process of watching people work out there. And maybe she just had a lot of problems to work out with a lot of kids at different schools too. Like who knows? But okay. Yeah, so remember, I might not have been there for everything that happened. I can't speak to everything or who did what for the most part. Some of these were just funny rumors and stories that traveled around that you heard happened at a different school, and you don't even know the kids who did it. So, unless people want to claim their own, like who did it really doesn't matter. It's more about just the general overall experience of these kids in high school and the end result of their high school and school journey together being one of togetherness and inclusiveness in the end that I think is most important about this movie, and most important when it comes to us growing up. So, and I think that's such a beautiful thing that it kind of shows our transformation at the end. I'm really excited for the new movie. I feel like I've been waiting and waiting and waiting. I've loved all of them. I love the one with, who was it, Megan Martin. I love that one too. Don't think I know as much about stuff that may have happened that inspired that movie to speak on. So, okay, the dirty little liar car moment is one that I probably have to own up to. Oh my goodness. So, this was actually not as big of a deal as it was made to be at the time. That's all I'm going to say. Sometimes when you're young and you're in the arts, you end up at an event or a party, and you're back at school the next day, and I was down at this and this show and helped out, and you have a story about maybe meeting some rock stars that all the kids at school think is really cool. And at the time, I had been going to a lot of different events, and sometimes there's parties within like the music scene or industry, or the art scene and stuff that were kind of mandatory attendance. And there were times, because I was pulled away from my life. You got to remember, I grew up with the Skinny Puppy Boys. And there were times that I would get pulled away from my life to help out with shows and stuff, whether I liked it or not. And I never knew what project I was going to be working on at any given time. And so I was already kind of one of those grown up kids that was just very, very used to that way of life. And so sometimes I downplayed it at school and tried not to talk about it. Like, I don't want these kids to think that I'm some wild party animal out there, even though I'm out there working in the club scene in my spare time. So I try to downplay it so I can have as normal of a high school experience as possible. I'm not looking like the whole thing about like fans and being followed and just getting questions everywhere you go about this or that song, is that it gets overwhelming. And if you're still growing up in high school, and you got to remember, high school girls, they go through that awkward phase, they go through getting zits, they go through having body image issues. And if you're working in that industry during that age, that can be such a tough thing to do. And so there were times where I would be at events, and I would try to sneak in and out of them unnoticed, and it was not something I would go back and tell people at school. And there started to become these little rumors that, like, hey, she's been out to several parties in the last few, like, where do you think she's going to, what's going on? She's got this whole thing going on in her life that she's not talking about at school. We don't know what's going on. So one night, some kids staked me out. I'm at a party with some popular people and maybe some industry people, and it's a party that I didn't want to advertise that I had popped in and out of. It was something I had to be at. It might have been in terms of also some last minute planning for a show. May have had to go meet someone there. Might have been like, it might have been something maybe he was at, and a show that I was helping him with, and it might have been my only chance to like go hammer out some details or something with him. So I'm gonna make an appearance at this party. And I might have been caught by some kids on my way out trying to leave discreetly. And they saw me leaving the party and pull up on me. And I have this horrible, embarrassing moment of, you little liar, you have been going to these parties and you haven't been inviting us. You haven't been telling us about, like, we're your friends, which is kind of where I think that moment went in actuality. That I had become part of something else now out there doing these shows, and some kids were feeling left behind a bit because my life was moving so fast in that direction so quickly. And sometimes when you kind of get big overnight, or you get noticed overnight, that can be really overwhelming for you and everyone else. It can be overwhelming for the people around you too, that like, now she's coming back from hanging out with these rock stars on the weekends. And I mostly wanted people to treat me fairly normally, for the most part. And I also realized that not all kids in high school were even mature enough to like say, hey, come along to the show. This wasn't a situation where I was going to be inviting everyone I ever went to school with since kindergarten to come to these shows, because not everyone is that mature yet to even handle that. Not everyone could even get permission from their parents, probably. Some kids had permission to be volunteering or working in the club scene, and a lot of other kids did not. Like more conservative church-going families, their kids were not out there in the clubs. So, sometimes, coming and going from these events and stuff would raise a lot of questions for people. Like, what is she out there doing at night that she comes back with she met so-and-so over the weekend, or she was at this one thing over the weekend, or this was a really good show. And kids started feeling left behind. And I remember AP sitting and talking with me once about that, and was like, that's part of that's natural. Like where we're headed, not everybody is going to be able to handle, and not everybody is going to be able to go with, and we're in this together, he and I. And like I said, sometimes he was the person that gave me those pep talks and those moments where I was like, this is getting too big. This is getting too overwhelming. And this is more than I expected. This is more than I expected. Like being a kid that grows up knowing that rock stars are writing about you out there, and not even being old enough to listen to the music yet, and there being rumors out there that she knows these people, and people wondering and speculating about which songs and stuff. That is such a heavy burden to grow up with, and that like I hope that I can say I have a whole lot of respect and love for what child celebrities go through growing up in that way, where not everything in their life might be private. It might not all be with their consent. And at some level, they're just trying to have a normal life and finish school. So some of those moments were really difficult growing up. And I think they were for everyone. Like you got to remember, so many kids coming and going from the arts. Every kid had those moments. Every kid had those moments where they may have just gotten a part in something, and things are starting to change for them. Maybe they had just done a commercial, spun their first set at a club. You think in the beginning that it's going to be fun and that everyone's going to love you, and then you find out that sometimes other people get jealous. Some people, will retaliate vindictively when they feel jealous. And this was an area that was always just like a vexing concern to me, when kids would start treating me differently like that, and I would feel like they were almost lashing out and retaliating because I wasn't inviting them to these shows. And a lot of the reason that I wasn't inviting them was because some of the times the things that happened at clubs were much more grown up than most school kids could probably handle. This was stuff that we were already used to, but that we didn't necessarily think was necessarily appropriate for every other kid. So in a way to kind of protect them, you don't need to know about that. Just focus on being a normal kid, because I've just realized that like I might not have normal again now with this new project, or things are getting rolling out there in the club scene, and now we're a big deal. That there's kind of no going back from that. There's kind of no going back from just being that little incognito girl in the back of the classroom that can take a little snooze in the back of class and go unnoticed when you have a tired day, to everybody coming up to you in the hallway, everybody coming up to you in the streets, everyone coming out to the club to see your shows. That can be kind of a whirlwind for any young person. So the movie kind of speaks to that a little bit about like this is how crazy Cady Heron's life got when she got in with the plastics, and suddenly she finds herself with the popular kids. They're doing more grown-up things. They're making more grown-up jokes. It's a world she's not accustomed to. She's not even accustomed to school yet, and she's getting thrown into this world, and it's kind of a fish out of water kind of tale. And for a lot of us kids growing up in the Portland arts community, that's how it felt. That kind of describes it really, really well. And you're going to meet great people out there, and you're going to meet some Regina Georges, and sometimes you're going to be the Regina George. You're going to have your Regina George moments when you're growing up in that world, whether you're a child celebrity or a normal high school kid. I think every girl has had their Regina George moments. I know my own female parrot. I feel personally victimized by her once in a while because she Regina Georges my shirt. So some people remember back when I did a lot more parrot content, and some of that funny content is still up on our channel. You can go, I made a place where you can find all of our cool parrot stuff, bird product reviews, funny bird moments, and all that sort of stuff. Once I take a nap with my girl after I first adopt her. She's a female cockatoo, and the biggest Guns N' Roses fan I think I've ever seen. It's that in one direction for her. For another one of my birds, it's Selena Gomez, and for another one, it's Tupac and rap music and some disco and Star Wars stuff. But she has seen these movies and the effects it had on her, where she loves things like Glee and Mean Girls and movies like that. One day I'm taking a nap with her, and I wake up like half an hour later, and she has Regina George my shirt. She has chewed holes in those spots in my shirt. And I was both simultaneously proud of her and a bit horrified at the same time, like, oh, you ruined my shirt. But oh my gosh, don't you remind me of me? Aren't you just like mommy? That you love this movie too, but we never do the things we see on TV, and I always have to remind her of that. We never do the things on TV. I think at one point I posted one of my shirts that she had Regina George, and I'd happened to be wearing a purple shirt underneath it that day, so when she chewed the hole out of it, it looked like a true Regina George moment, and I think I captured that back when we were doing more bird content. And I was like my feathered daughter Regina Georged me today, and that was a parenting moment that I was unprepared for and should have been. Now we've had that little movie moment, and I have to sit down and explain to her that this movie is a cautionary tale, and this movie is this is how not to be movie, and that we don't do the things we see on TV. She slushied me once too. She just like her mama. Sometimes she do those pranks too. So she's a big fan of the movie. So I'm hoping when the new movie comes out that her and I will be able to have that mother feather daughter moment together. Let's see. The I will keep you here till 4 line. Our school was one of the first schools that had this workshop intervention, and I think the naughty stuff that it must have happened across the whole school with multiple cliques and groups of kids just got so out of control that one day they were going to keep us there until the parents came to we will keep you after school, and somebody informs that you can only keep them till 4. And all the kids in the auditorium just bust up laughing. Actually, I think it was in the gymnasium. I think that workshop was in the school gymnasium and not the auditorium, if I remember correctly. And that one moment where they're just starting to implement this new intervention program for teen kids at schools going through these sorts of normal teenage issues, and they're doing these workshops for the first time. They're just starting to become a thing that schools are relying more and more on, along with their having Smokey the Bear come in and talk about not starting wildfires and, educational stuff that kids at certain ages need to learn through school assemblies and stuff like that. And this was becoming more of a trend, but in the early days, our school was one of the first pilot schools where they tested this new workshop intervention program, and it worked really well. It worked. We loved it. By the end of the day, kids were participating. Kids had stopped grumbling. Kids were getting up and getting involved. Kids were starting to become friends. Kids were starting to put their differences aside. Kids were starting to find they had things in common with the, step over the line if this has ever happened to you, so that you can learn to have sympathy and compassion for others that might be going through some of the same. And maybe a kid that you absolutely hate in school, you step over the line at the same moment they do, and you realize you're both struggling with the same thing. And now you have something in common. Now you have a place to build a friendship, So it was a really helpful series of workshops, and if I don't discuss that, since that wasn't discussed as much within the movie and with the promotional stuff initially for the movie, if I don't discuss how effective this was at getting a whole city a whole city youth, a whole city of kids that in just some wild free range kids times under control, I think they were in the end pretty beneficial, and brought kids together and made kids look for commonalities instead of differences. So, I don't want to end this video without discussing that and what an impact that had on kids across Portland at the time, which was a beautiful thing, because that's how we got the Last Supper lunch table by the end of the saga for senior year. That's how, kid who went unnoticed gets his poem hung on the award wall. This is how kids, got beyond issues they may have had with each other for years, going back to middle school. This is how, kids ended up getting their salad bar saved. They were able to come together and solve their problems. And I don't think we would have still had a salad bar and gotten that one kid elected as president and had that awesome of a senior all-night party, and all those amazing moments if we hadn't gone through those workshops and submitted to the process of learning and growing and maturing. So we've got to give all the Portland kids credit for how well they handled learning how to dial it back and become normal, appropriate human beings again, in a way, and just start handling things with a bit more maturity, considering other people's feelings and stuff. So those were supposed to be the morals of the movie, and I hope that people don't forget that this is these kids' transformation story. And in any coming of age tale, we can't lose that. We can't lose that message in that story, because that's the most beautiful part. So let's see. Sometimes these witty lines that happen, they would just come out in the moment. They would just, like, kid would just spurt out, say "see again," in line, just in the moment. It would just be just one of those hilarious moments that stuck. So, these were really creative kids that just, they had their own thoughts and weird little ways, and traditions and stuff. So, by the end of high school, we have the Last Supper lunch table. Other things we worked at the Last Supper lunch table is, we were a more LGBT positive school. So we had kids that were out there in the club scene, and kids who were just learning about who they were, and still finding themselves. And it was a more open-minded generation where, like I said, we more prized individuality and not being like everyone else, except on Wednesdays when we wear pink. And that's only because that's traditions. That's only for sacred traditions reasons. It wasn't meant to be a superficial thing in the beginning. It was meant to be a togetherness sort of thing. But so one of the issues we had was there was also the P Circle kids out at the flagpole praying every morning. So anyone who's seen Easy A and remembers Amanda Bynes' character in that movie, like, we had that girl. That girl went to our school, and she stole my boyfriend once. And there was some beef over some possibly not okay things that some of these church kids were believing about the LGBT community that was sometimes coming across offensive at morning prayer circle. As these kids would be entering the school, sometimes they would get horrible things shouted at them, and then they would gather back around the flagpole, like playing the guitar and singing like they were just these perfect little kids and hadn't just said something horribly offensive to maybe an LGBT kid. And I think Amanda Bynes portrays it so well in the movie, how it actually happened. But that was a problem we solved at the Last Supper lunch table, where we were able to sit down with the Christian kids and the LGBT kids and come up with some ground rules for, you can pray outside at the flagpole, but you cannot holler offensive things at other kids just because you might not agree with certain things about them. So here is kids showing that they can work out their problems together by the end of their high school experience, by the end of these workshops. And by the time that they had learned a bit and grown in some maturity and learned to see each other's side of things, they are now mediating their own problem solving stuff this way by sitting down at the Last Supper lunch table and talking out their problems. And that is the most beautiful part of our high school experience and of this whole story, and kind of where I want to leave that. All funny moments aside, let's not glorify, okay, yeah, some of them were funny moments. Let's not glorify people being brats. Let's not glorify people being mean. And I don't want young girls to grow up wanting to be those mean girls. We were those mean girls. At times, we might not have been the mean girl all the time, but every high school girl had their mean girl moments, or their moments where they felt like they were being bullied and on the receiving end. And I think schools need to adopt a zero tolerance policy towards that altogether. No cliques, no mean girling, And it wasn't just the girls. There were mean boys too. You know, it wasn't just limited to the girls. So I don't want to also just isolate this to a specific gender and say that's a problem for that gender. Girls at that age can go through a phase where they're a bit more catty and rebellious and vindictive towards each other. You know, some of that passive aggressive behavior starts showing up in high school. And some of that is just that age level. But what they need to work on doing is preventing that stuff before it gets to that point. These workshops would be more effective if they started doing that in middle school and maybe even before middle school, because middle school is when things start getting real catty between girls. Guys are still kind of sort of getting along at that point. You know, and then by the time you're in high school, everybody's changed even more, and everybody's finding their own cliques and their own extracurricular pursuits, and kids that may have been close in grade school or middle school sometimes aren't close in high school, and they don't stay friends in high school. You know, so the movie became iconic because it speaks to that generation of kids, but it speaks to also what all kids go through. What all kids go through. You know, you've had your mean girl moments too. And I don't want movies like this to make young little girls growing up in this day and age think that that's the way they should be when they get to high school. I would rather you guys acting like the mature professionals that we were in the industry towards the end of high school by senior year. You know, when we could work together at a club, no matter what clique we came from, and put on the best show you've ever seen. Because that was the end result of the growth that my generation of kids as Gen Xers made in high school. So, you know, let's leave it on that. I might do a review when the new one comes out. I'm not gonna lie, I'm super excited. The Harry Ends joke, oof, that's one I'm a bit nervous on, because that joke started out funny in the moment, and may have gone too far. Again, like the Planned Parenthood prank, it may have been one of those moments that we shouldn't look back on and be proud of, but darn it if it wasn't funny the first time. And yeah, that may have been me and some club friends. That's not one I'm proud of. Not one I'm proud of. I really hope they don't show how far that went, where that line literally became the insult for any girl you hated across the whole city, for all girls. Like, that's how bad it got. That's how bad it got, that if you got called that out at a club or in the cafeteria, that was like the most insulting thing you could say about another girl, which you know, it was funny in the moment for the original use, and I'm not going to go into what the original use behind that joke was, because I don't want to get that restarted. But I know when this movie comes out, it's gonna come back. It's gonna come back, and I'm asking you guys, like, if you have to do it for a performance, you know, let's not encourage little girls to be repeating those kind of unhealthy jokes out there, because that's when you can really offend someone. You can really offend a lady that way. Like don't test that one out. I'd advise against it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what's in the new movie, and I kind of like the way they're doing it, where it's an all new cast, but kind of the same kind of story, because this repeats in every generation of kids. You get kids that get to that certain age, and they're going to need some help with growing in their social skills and maturity, and you know, maybe making some better decisions when it comes to that sort of stuff as they're still learning. So you know, but yay, we made it through high school. We got through it. Lots of fun times, lots of funny times. Can't wait to see the new movie. So it drops in January. Is it January 21st that it comes out? Let's see, who do we have in it? Tina Fey's in it. Yay. I'm a huge fan of her work. I like how sometimes she tells these kinds of stories. I don't know her personally. I like that sometimes she tells these coming of age stories that should have these good moral lessons, but she does it in a comedic way where you can kind of look back on and laugh at some of it. Because you got to understand, sometimes these things were a bit offensive when they happened, and it may have left hard feelings between kids, and they may have worked that stuff out through those workshops decades ago, and then a movie like this comes out, and you don't want to open a whole new big can of worms all over again and bring up old issues for someone too. So let's see, Renee Rapp as Regina. Oh man, I'm gonna do horrible on these names. I'm sorry if I get your name wrong. I'm really excited to see you guys in this movie. Angourie Rice, did I get that right? As Cady. Is Busy Phillips in this? OMG! Yay! Yay! Excited for that. And the girl who plays Janice was also she played Moana, so I'm super super excited about that. Moana, one of my favorite movies. So yay. And there's a whole lot of other awesome people in this cast. That's not everyone, but we're out of time. So I hope you guys enjoyed some of these story times. Like I said, it's not about who did what back in the day. Some of these are just general stories of like group jokes that just caught on and were like traditions all over. Like there were certain lingo lines like "say see again" that were just iconic of Gen X kids back in the 90s, where you had an epidemic out there, and people trying to come up with clever just say no sorts of lingo, to remind people why that stuff is a bad idea. And jokes like that came out of it. Ideally, that if kids made a joke out of something like that, not to minimize substance issues or anything like that and what people go through with that, but if we made it look like something unflattering, maybe it would deter people. So that's how that joke came to be, was the intention was to make using that substance seem unflattering, and like you don't want to do that. Sometimes we go a bit overboard starting those kinds of trends, but I think the intention was always in the right place at the end of the day. So, okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed the story time. I gotta go get something to eat here. Yeah, so, are you guys looking forward to the new movie too? Yay. It's been a long time. I didn't think this movie would ever happen. This was one movie I almost felt 100% confident we would never see. So yeah. Yeah, so yay, I hope it's great. I hope it's great. I'm looking forward to it. And maybe we'll have a second episode 2 of this and discuss the new movie once it comes out. All right, so stay tuned for my next story time. Hope you guys enjoyed. I will leave my donation link if you want to help towards my medical care and the stuff I'm going through in life right now. No obligation. Every little bit helps though. And maybe I'll link some of my favorite, scene clips from the movie, and some other, similar content about the movie down in the playlists. Okay, bye. One more last little minute addition is the Get In Loser We're Going Shopping line. This line came from, drumroll please, AP. AP started that. Sometimes AP would just show up after school with his car because he was a couple years older than some of us. So he was already an upperclassman when we were underclassmen, and then he was out of school by the time we were upperclassmen. And sometimes he was our off campus ride to go get lunch or whatever. And he would just pull up to your school auditorium and holler, "Get in, loser, we're going shopping." And it just caught on. And next thing you know, I'm saying it, everyone else is saying it. Um, and that's where that joke came from. And it spread like wildfire and it didn't go away. And I won't say that I haven't occasionally used that line as a funny joke going out with friends throughout my life. I hope people know that if I ever use that line on you, it was actually a compliment and not an insult. And the way that that story happened when it first happened is why. Because if we're inviting you to come with us to go shopping or to go to a restaurant after school or at lunch, we already consider you a cool kid. But you're just not feeling that way yet because you might be new, you don't know us that well, you haven't been hanging out with us in the club scene. Maybe you're one of those kids that's looking to get a volunteer spot at the clubs with us. And if we're inviting you along, we already think you're cool, but sometimes me and AP could see the insecurity on people, so we'd make a joke like that, like to kind of ease the awkward moment of going out with new friends for the first time, and it was never meant to be insulting. It was meant to be kind of a funny way to welcome people that was just kind of, a little sarcastic. It wasn't meant to be as insulting as it might come across in the movie. It was funny though. It was funny though. If you were one of those kids that got picked up and AP hollered that at you as you were grabbing your book bag and like heading out the door, and he's like, "Get in, loser, we're going shopping." And the minute he said it to you, you knew that you were gonna go off and have fun with the cool kids, and tomorrow you weren't gonna be a loser anymore, sort of thing. And it was something that kids actually looked forward to rather than it being an embarrassing moment. It was like, come hang out with us today, sort of thing. We already don't see you as any kind of loser. And that's why we said that. Me and AP were big on confidence. We were big on projecting confidence, having confidence, being confident on the dance floor, being confident in the DJ booth. And sometimes kids at that age aren't confident yet. They haven't built that confidence yet. They don't have the skills for that confidence. See, ego is something you can fake and prop up. Real confidence, on the other hand, comes from actual accomplishments. And once you have a few of those under your belt, whether it's you can DJ or you can design costumes or whatever, you have that confidence, and deep in your heart that you're not a loser. And so the idea was, come hang out with us and don't ever look at yourself as a loser again, sort of thing, was the intention behind it. And kids look forward to hearing that. Kids look forward to getting picked up by AP and hearing that. And it just became a tradition. We just said it to everyone, always, every time. Anytime you pick up your friends, that was what you yelled. As they were coming out their house to, get in the car to go to school in the morning, if you're going shopping at the mall after school, if you're going to the club one night, that was the line. That was the line that every kid used. And because it speaks to, we want people to see their inner confidence and not look at themselves that way. I don't know, maybe that one should stay around. Maybe that one should stay around as long as people can keep it in perspective and not don't look at it as an insult. look at it as we think the world of you sort of thing, which was the original sentiment behind it. So just to clear that up. So yeah, just one little addition there. So